The 2020 presidential election just finished up. Election day was last week on November 3rd, 2020. It was last Tuesday, but the actual winner of the presidential election was not projected until last Saturday on November 7th, 2020. It was projected on that date that Joe Biden would be the winner of this presidential election. Granted, it's not actually official that Joe Biden is the winner of this presidential election until the electors in the Electoral College cast their vote for Joe Biden on some date in December. I don't remember the exact date, but sometime in December, all these electors in the Electoral College, they will cast their vote for either Joe Biden or Donald Trump, depending on which candidate that their state voted for. And since Joe Biden won a majority of the electoral votes in the Electoral College, then those electors will vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden will get more electoral votes and he will become president. So that presidential election just finished up, but there's already some talks about who's going to run in 4 years from now, who's going to run in the 2024 presidential election. Now, this election will take place on November 5th, 2024, because that is the first Tuesday of the month. And the way they decide when election day is it's usually the first Tuesday of the month, but if the first Tuesday of the month is November 1st, then they go to November 8th, the next Tuesday of the month. But in 4 years from now, in 2024, the first Tuesday of November is November 5th. So election day is November 5th, 2024. That's when the next presidential election is taking place. And obviously, we have no idea as of now who's going to run in this presidential election. And we're not going to know for another at least 2 years, maybe 2.5 years from now. I know for this presidential election cycle, the first debate took place in June of 2019, but I know in 2008 for that election cycle, the first debate took place in April of 2007. So the actual election is in November of 2024, but the primaries will be in early 2024, and the debates will take place in mid to late 2023. But a lot of candidates will start declaring their candidacy in either late 2022 or early 2023. So it's a bit over 2 years from now until we will finally start to get a good idea of who's actually running in this presidential election. But already there's a lot of speculation on who will be running in 4 years from now from both the Democrats and the Republicans. Now, the thing is that since Joe Biden won this presidential election and this will be his first term as president from now until 2024, it is likely that he will try to run for a second term as president, and if that's the case, he automatically becomes the Democratic nominee for president. But there's also a chance that Joe Biden only runs for one term and he just decides to not be president anymore after 2024. In that case, someone else would have to be the nominee. It would probably be Kamala Harris, but we're also going to talk about other possible nominees. But the reason why he might not run for a second term is that by the time his first term is over, he will already be 82 years old. And this is nothing against Joe Biden personally, but being 82 years old is not a easy task. Once you're over the age of 80, it is really hard to manage an entire country. Jimmy Carter himself said that he is now 96 years old, I believe, but he said himself, if I was president at age 80, I don't think I could have handled it. I don't remember the exact words he said, but it was something along those lines. He was president from 1976 until 1980. He won against Gerald Ford in 1976, but lost against Ronald Reagan in 1980. And at the time, he was somewhere in his 50s, but he said himself a while ago that if he was president when he was 80, he would have not been able to handle it. So, personally, I think that Joe Biden might only run one term. Nothing against Joe Biden personally, it's just that being 82 years old and running an entire country is not an easy task, and it would make perfect sense if Joe Biden were to retire after one term. Like I said, nothing against Joe Biden. I think anybody in that situation would likely retire after one term. It's not easy to run a country at age 80 plus, but he even said himself that he's not sure as of now, and he'll see how things go in his first term. And there were some talks early on in the primary season. I think it was towards the end of last year, there were some talks about him only serving one term, and the idea was that he would serve as sort of a transition figure, so to get away from Trump, and he will just be president for 4 years, but then he'll let someone younger, someone more progressive, become the next president. So it is not clear at this moment, will he serve one term or will he run for a second term, but we're going to talk about in this video who could be the nominee for the Democratic Party in 4 years from now if Joe Biden does not decide to do a second term and he decides to retire. Like I said, this is 4 years from now. The 2020 election just got over, so it's just under 4 years until the next presidential election. So this is all speculation. We still have no idea for sure who's going to run, but there are a few people who have said they're really considering running in 4 years from now. So let's talk about who all could potentially run. We're gonna talk about the Democrats first, and then we'll go to the Republicans. I have not really kept track of who all is considering running for president, so I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page. The Wikipedia page for the 2024 presidential election was just created a few days ago, so I'm just looking at that now. It has a list on this page about who is thinking of running in 4 years, who said they will consider running in 4 years, and who said they're not going to run in 4 years. So, one of them is obviously Joe Biden. Like I said, he would, if he decides not to retire, then he would obviously be the nominee in 4 years from now, unless someone else primaries him, which is fairly unlikely. But Joe Biden would likely be the nominee for the Democrats in the 2024 election if he decides not to retire. The other Democrat who has flat out said that they might run in 4 years from now, and it's not just theory, it's actually confirmed that they're considering running in 4 years from now. It's Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang is not a politician, he's an entrepreneur, so it was fairly surprising that he was actually able to get as far as he got in the 2020 Democratic primaries. So yeah, he was a candidate in the 2020 Democratic primaries. He was trying to run for president. He didn't get that far compared to other candidates like Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, or even Pete Buttigieg, but no one was really expecting him to get that far because he was not a politician. He's never served in public office. He was an entrepreneur, but the idea around him was that he wanted to give every American above the age of 18 $1,000 a month because he saw the effects of automation and how many people were losing their jobs because of that, and he thought a way to mitigate the effects of that was to give everyone $1,000 a month. He called it the freedom dividend, but the more official name for it would be universal basic income. So no one expected him to get that far because has not served in public office. He was not a politician. He was just a businessman, an entrepreneur. But I'm actually surprised by how far he got. He actually got around 5% of the Iowa caucuses, but I don't think he did as well in the New Hampshire primary. But after the New Hampshire primary, that night actually, on February 11th of this year, Andrew Yang decided to drop out. And then a month later, after Joe Biden won several of the primaries, he then endorsed Joe Biden for president. But a few months ago, Andrew Yang made a post on his Instagram teasing a presidential run from 4 years from now, and I think he's flat out said that he's really considering running for president in 4 years from now. Granted, I don't think he would run for president if Joe Biden was still trying to get a second term, and also he made that post long before Joe Biden was elected to become president in the first place. But I guess he was assuming that if Donald Trump wins, then he would run for president in 4 years because then Donald Trump would have two terms, then a Democrat would have to run for president because there was no incumbent. So those are the two Democrats that have already flat out said they're going to run for president. But besides that, another candidate that a lot of people are thinking might run is Andrew Cuomo. He's the governor of New York. He's been the governor of New York for many years, and he got a lot of popularity earlier this year because of COVID-19. New York was the state that was doing the worst with it at first, as in they were getting so many cases. At one point, a third of the cases in the entire country was from New York, but later on, more and more states started getting major spikes, so New York wasn't as much at the total amount of cases in proportion in relation to the other states. But at the start of this pandemic, Andrew Cuomo got a lot of popularity because he was the governor of the state with the most cases. And he got a lot of popularity because a lot of people thought he was showing leadership by not fooling around, but like actually handling the pandemic by tackling it head on. So because of that, a lot of people think that he might run in 4 years from now. Another possibility, and this one is fairly obvious, but Kamala Harris, especially if Joe Biden does not run for president in 4 years from now, she would be the default nominee in my opinion because if Joe Biden doesn't run and he's the president, then Kamala Harris would be the most obvious choice for the Democratic nominee. It's what happened in the 2020 primaries. Obviously, Obama couldn't run because he already served two terms, but who is the most obvious option for nominee for the Democrats? Joe Biden. He was vice president under Obama. It was fairly obvious to a lot of people. Joe Biden should be the nominee. And just like that, a lot of people might think the same sort of way for Kamala Harris. She was the vice president under Biden. Maybe she should be the nominee now. So that's what a lot of people think. And she might get a lot of votes in the primaries if she decides to run in 4 years from now. I know this year in the 2020 primaries she didn't really get far. She didn't even make it to the primaries. She dropped out in early December of last year, December 2019. She dropped out before any votes were even cast in the primaries, but she might run in 4 years from now. Another potential candidate that a lot of people are saying might run in 4 years from now is Gavin Newsom, who is the governor of California. He has been the governor of California since last year, but before that, he was the lieutenant governor of California, and even before that, he was the mayor of San Francisco. So he has also gotten a lot of popularity because of the COVID 19 crisis. He is the governor of a major state. He's actually the governor of the state with the most amount of people. California has more people than any other state. And because of that, some people are saying that he might run for president in 4 years from now. It's a similar story to Andrew Cuomo. Because of his handling of the COVID 19 pandemic, he has gained some popularity, although it might not be as much as Andrew Cuomo. A lot of people are saying he might run in 4 years from now to try to become the nominee for the Democrats. And then AOC, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, it seems that she's actually the most popular United States representative in Congress. And she is the representative for New York's 14th congressional district, and she has only served in that district for the past 2 years. She got elected in the 2018 midterm elections, and ever since then, she's represented her district in New York. But she has gotten very popular because of her policies that she supports. She supports the same sort of policies that Bernie Sanders supports, and that has helped her gain a lot of popularity. Granted, she's also got a lot of hatred from the right wing because of her left wing policies, but that would make sense. The left wing is going to support her because she has more left wing policies that are kind of in line with Bernie Sanders, but then the right wing would be against her because she supports more wealth redistribution, but the right doesn't support as much of that. She supports more environmental regulation, but the right won't support as much of that, so on and so forth. So she would be fairly popular among left wing people, such as the Bernie Sanders type, but not among right wing people necessarily. So she is another possibility for a candidate in 4 years from now for president for the Democrats. But the last one on this list on Wikipedia, here it says Bernie Sanders, but I honestly know if that's going to happen. I don't know if Bernie Sanders is going to run for president in 2024. Two reasons for that. Number one, he's already 79 years old, so in 4 years from now, he would be 83, and that is a really old age. Like I said, Joe Biden would be 82 from 4 years from now, and he might retire then, so Bernie Sanders likely won't run for president in 4 years from now at that age. The second reason is because he's already ran for president twice and lost both times. He lost 4 years ago against Clinton in 2016, Hillary Clinton, and he lost this year in 2020 against Joe Biden. So he probably won't run after losing two times, but we'll have to see. But there's also the issue of him being 83 years old in 4 years from now. That might be too old for him. That is just not an easy thing to do, running for president at that age. So nothing against Bernie Sanders personally, but that's the issue. And then for the Republican Party, the only person who has so far explicitly expressed interest in running 4 years from now is Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey from 2010 to 2018. He's the only person who has explicitly expressed interest in running for the Republicans in 4 years from now. And because Donald Trump lost this election, there will definitely not be an incumbent Republican president in 4 years from now. So there's going to be many different Republicans competing to become the nominee. So Chris Christie is the only one who has expressed interest, but a lot of people are thinking Donald Trump himself might run for president again 4 years from now. He has only served one term from 2017 till 2021 when he'll leave office, but that means that he can serve another term if he wins the presidency in 2024. And here's the thing, Donald Trump is hugely popular among the Republicans. He has over 90% approval rating among Republicans. So if he runs for president for the Republicans 4 years from now, there's a pretty good chance he could become the nominee, and he would face probably Kamala Harris in the election 4 years from now, or Joe Biden for that matter. That would be interesting, seeing Joe Biden and Donald Trump go at it against each other in another election, but it's unclear whether he's actually going to go through with it 4 years from now, but we'll have to see. Other people on this list include Greg Abbott, Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz, Nikki Haley, Larry Hogan, Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, Marco Rubio, Rick Scott, Tim Scott, Donald Trump Jr., and Eric Trump. The last two of which are sons of Donald Trump, and Ted Cruz ran in 2016, Marco Rubio ran in 2016, Mike Pence is Trump's vice president, so he would be the default option if Trump doesn't run in 4 years from now. And then, Ted Cruz ran, and Greg Abbott's the governor of Texas, Tom Cotton, senator from Arkansas, Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina, Larry Hogan, governor of Maryland, as a Republican, but Maryland's a liberal state, so that's kind of surprising. Mike Pompeo, current Secretary of State, Rick Scott and Tim Scott, both senators, Rick Scott from Florida, Tim Scott, South Carolina, and that is all the people on the list for the Republicans.